got another edition of Talking Preps OT, and I mean, we just keep training them out with great guests. And today we've switched it up a little bit. I'm normally in the guru seat, and I've got a special guest playing Grice today. And again, we've got Gary Richmond here. So Gary, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be here. Glad to get the season underway.
Oh, yeah, and I think with Gary Richmond here, I guess you guys can probably figure out where our guest is coming from. But we'll bring him in, Coach Montis Lash, the AD for Julius Chambers High School. Coach Lash, thank you for joining us today. Oh, you're on mute. I think can't hear you.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you all for having me this
There you
morning. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you.
Of course. And, we always start with our guests by first, asking the process and the journey it took to get where you are. So, give us a quick synopsis of, where you came from, your history, and how you got to your position.
Oh, well, that's a long story, but a great grind it was. Lots of blessings along the way. But I started coaching Little League, sort of similar to you, Grace. That's kind of where I started. That's where I began molding my coaching calling. It was pretty much one of those things. Once I started, it was like I knew this is what I want to do with my life. And since that point, I've kind of just grinded, figured out a way to get into CMS because I was living in Charlotte. So I finally got into CMS in 2015, and I was coaching at Mountain Island Charter as the offensive coordinator. I helped start that varsity program with Coach Robert Washington. I was also coaching track as well. I had started as a volunteer coach with Coach Willoughby, who's now the head coach at Mallard Creek. He was pretty much the guy that gave me my first real coaching job. So since then, man, it's just been a grind. I've been blessed to work with some really good head coaches, Robert being one of them. I did spend a year at Providence High School as the OC under Coach Brad Bowles, who I still think to this day is arguably one of the best head coaches ever to be in North Carolina. Dude does a phenomenal job with culture and team building. A lot of things I've learned, I kind of stole from him in that 1 year with him. He left for South Carolina, got a great job. And then ultimately that's how I landed at Vance. Coach Richardson kind of came and stole me and gave me one of those lifetime opportunities, obviously with a great team that we were walking into, after the brand era. And we've just been grinding since then, man. Unfortunately he did leave us last year, Mr. Richardson. But he got a great job at South Point. So I was fortunate to kind of work under him the last 3 years. And when the spot came open, everybody was pretty much like, Lash is going to be our guy. He's going to keep the train rolling. So, I was blessed to be able to step into that athletic director role. And I've just been trying to embrace that and just grow from there, man. Try to continue building a great brand for our school now instead of just football.
Definitely. And following up with that, we talk about coaches and the usual path, I guess it takes. And, your path was definitely unique. And specifically on the education side, could you kind of go in a little bit into your educational background and how you think that prepared you for your ultimate step of becoming an athletic director?
To be honest, it really did kind of come full circle. I went to school for business. I majored in marketing originally. I've owned my own business a couple times over. And once I began coaching, that's really what brought me into the school system, because that was going to be the only way I could provide for my family and be able to coach full time. So, I had to become a teacher. So I started off as a business teacher. But one thing, I always share a unique story. I've had my degree for a while, but I think it took me about 150 jobs over a 2-year period that I applied for with CMS before I finally got in. And when I got in, it happened to be at a career fair. Principal interviewed me, and I was able to get a job. So, I had to really stay the course and trust God. I still keep record of those 150 jobs I applied for, along with some of the coaching ones that I didn't get as well. But since then, I just grind, man. And God's kind of blessed me with some great opportunities along the way. And I think, my background in business, you see more of that now in my role over the last couple of years, as far as the marketing, the branding, and the things I've done as a business owner, more so than the educational side. I love teaching. I'm a great teacher, but I've taught a variety of classes. So, my background educationally couldn't have really prepared me for that. I just happened to be you know, a quick learner and kind of get a hold of some of those things. And now more so from a business standpoint, you're seeing kind of what I went to school for.
Who's one of the schools that you applied coaching jobs for, Lash? Give us one. Give us one. I know one of them's out there. One of the schools that is going to realize that they did not hire Coach Lash into their program. I know you have them on a board, posted up somewhere. And every time you guys play them, and no one knows.
Here,
We know. We know you got it on your list. It's like, I remember you didn't
I,
hire me as you shake their hand after you're victorious. You going
here
to
you
give us
go.
one?
I'll give you one because we won't play them. I'll give you one, and that was Stuart Kramer. Um,
Ah, yeah.
as an assistant coach. The head coach wanted to hire me, but ultimately came down to the principal and the board, whoever it was at that time. But we'll never play them, so I can leak that name. It's okay. I won't leak anybody else. They already think I'm petty enough. Like
I get you in trouble. I do you give me at least one. No, it was great. But we were kind of talking in the back and giving the viewers a little bit of a window there, and just even someone who's known you for as long as I have, I did not realize that you had the two master's degrees and were in school in California. Talk a little bit about your time in Oakland and just maybe how that shaped your view a little bit different. I mean, we know clearly you're unique from your presence and just the way you think about things in a very positive way. So just give us, a window into that time in California and how that kind of shapes you going forward.
yeah. Well, I mean, I took a chance on myself, just trying to invest in myself from an educational standpoint, and just wanting to experience something. That couple years or 2.5 years was very unique, but it was helpful. As I said, kind of behind the scenes, Oakland culture is just different, man. And as a black man, it's arguably one of the best places you could live and kind of just fit in, because everyone's going to look like you pretty much for the most part everywhere you go. So I was able to experience our culture in a different setting, be able to see successful black men, all the way down to the homeless situation that they have going on. That's been a crisis for 10 plus years. But that time, if I'm bringing that full circle back to now in my time at Chambers, I'm blessed to work around kids, admin, teachers that look like me. So it's something that I enjoy as far as pouring into our kids and then and having a support team around me that looks like me. But that time out there kind of helped, shape and help me understand the value of, us supporting each other.
Good morning, Coach. How you doing today?
What's up, Mr. Gary Richmond? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I almost wanted to start laughing when you said you had applied over 150 times to CMS. They got about 500 openings right now. And I think anybody can get a job in CMS right now.
Yeah, well, we had that shortage when I was applying in 2013 to 2015, but I promise you, I could probably pull up that screenshot right now. I got record of it, I promise.
I know that.
When you said 150 times, I was like, what were they looking for back then? Because right now, they're looking for breathing bodies. If you can breathe and you can get there on time, you're hired. Um,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
kind of made me laugh when you said that. But I guess we're in different time periods now. You said one of your degrees was in marketing, and that made me think about you are known for and very good at promoting Chambers athletics. The hype videos on Twitter and Facebook and other forms of social media really attract a lot of attention. Um, is that a way to promote Chambers? What is the purpose of that? First of all,
So for me, the main purpose, right? And I started this a while ago. Social media just really kind of blew up as far as athletics. I wasn't the first coach promoting their program. I just had a vision that I kind of worked on behind the scenes for our program. And some of the things, I borrowed from a lot of college programs. But to answer your question, the purpose is really to give our kids an experience that they're going to remember 10, 20, 30 years down the road. I always talk about the idea, like our era of coaches, We can't really go back to the high school vaults and pull those pictures and videos. We ain't have it. A lot of us, our coaches was exchanging tapes, VHS or DVD. If you had pictures, it came from the newspaper. So, I'm trying to provide a unique experience for our kids that they can remember forever. That's number one. But two, I tried to create a lane for our program that's going to bring value and attention to it where we don't have the resources that a lot of other schools have. So, when I first came on, we had a small booster club. So, we're not going to have an abundance of money. So my marketing savvy was, hey, how can we create a brand that makes sponsors or companies want to come in and support us versus, oh, my son Johnny's on the team, or I graduated from there, so I'm just dumping money into the school. We haven't really had that. So for me, it's about creating a brand that makes companies want to support us and get behind what we're doing and rally behind our teams. Moving to athletic director, it shifted now from just football and track, because those are my primary sports, to now I'm trying to recreate that for all of my sports. Um, my principal always talks about, you know, and this is the third part to your question. He always talks about being the school of choice for the Charlotte area. And as the athletic director, my job is to help promote Chambers High School to be a school of choice. And for me, that's from an athletic side. I want parents and kids to know exactly what they're stepping into when they're looking for a school or looking for a home school, or they move into the to Charlotte area. I want them to feel comfortable knowing that their kid is going to have a great experience, and they're going to be successful within any of our athletic programs.
Coach, I can relate to you stepping away from being a coach, not to being an AD, but just stepping away from being a coach, and it can be kind of tough. I did it a couple of times in my own career, and it kept pulling me back. It kept pulling me back. How is it as an AD not being in those coaches meetings, game planning, uh, practice, study hall, uh,
Bryce got me rolling right now.
listening to playing time from parents? How has that transition been from what you used to do as a coach as opposed to what you have to do as an AD?
So I'm a transparent person. I'll shoot it to you straight. 100% of the time. It has been a struggle. I'm a ball coach. I love coaching ball. I love, especially at Chambers. I fell in love really with coaching, being here, and our kids. So stepping away, last year I was able to kind of finish out the season and kind of take on AD duties as interim until the season was over. But this year, being 100% away from coaching ball, it is tough, man. The kids miss me. They tell me all the time. What I did for my own kind of sanity is like just step back, from being at practice every day, and just trusting our coaches. I'm really close with Coach Wiggins. He and I attended the same high school, so we come from the same coaching tree. And then obviously our offensive coordinator, Donald Littlejohn, that's my best friend. Me and him talk regularly. So, I have to really trust the guys that's in place to take this program to the next place, and not, be in my own feelings about just missing coaching ball. It's tough though. You miss it. You miss the meetings. You miss the prep. You miss just hanging around with the kids in the locker room. But I'm still able to build those bonds and those relationships, just from an AD standpoint. The kids still know I have an open door policy. So, they spend a lot of time in my office. I still know about all the personal things going on with all of our kids. So I just give it to them in a different light, just from not from a coaching role, but just more so from now I'm even more so a fatherly, perspective, just because I'm over all the sports now.
And also, Coach, we talked about you having to step away, and I know it's tough when you don't get to be around the kids on a daily basis. Do you think CMS should go back to allowing ADs to coach? When I was coming up through CMS, most of the ADs were also the head football coach, And if it wasn't the head football coach, maybe the head basketball coach. And I think there were people that thought not so much that they had too much on their plate, but they funneled so much of the money towards their own programs. And the other coaches from other sports might complain, how come we don't get it? The football team gets it, or the basketball team gets it. Well, I always thought, regardless, uh, those two sports are going to get the majority of the money because they bring in the majority of the income. But what are your thoughts about CMS ADs being allowed to coach? It's still done in a lot of school systems around North Carolina. Seems like the major ones, Wake, CMS, they have gone away from ADs being allowed to coach.
So I'm on both sides of that fence. Now that I'm on the athletic director side, from a logistical standpoint, from a responsibility standpoint, from just a daily must in terms of your task and things that you're tasked to do from a director standpoint, it is a lot. And although I think it would be great, it would be a lot on your plate to handle. Like I think, is it possible? Very much so. Um, but I think it still would probably vary school by school because the resources that's available, the support that's available, or even just the coaches that you have around you. If you're the AD and the head football coach, you still have to be cognizant of the coaches in your other sports. So, you have young coaches, you're doing a lot of mentoring. If you have first year, second year coaches, you're doing a lot of growing and teaching as far as grooming them as a head coach. If we're talking about the other side of that coin, and I have coaches that can run their programs and don't really need my support, well, that frees me up to be able to be a coach and an AD. So I think it would be on a case by case basis. I can make an argument for either side. Ultimately, I think if North Carolina is going to keep up with the other states, they're going to have to look at, restructuring some things, whether that's, increasing coaching pay or increasing athletic director pay. Because as we know, we lose, a ton of coaches every year to other jobs in other states, to go do exactly what we're doing here for, a fraction of the pay. So I'm hoping that, I'm not even going to say I'm hoping. I trust in Erica Turner and Steve Robinson. They've already made waves in terms of just the support for athletic directors and the coaches and what they're trying to bring to CMS. So, I don't have any doubt, in this moment that they're not trying to fight to make us competitive with these other states so that we're not losing, good teachers, good coaches, good athletic directors.
Yeah, I had a talk with both of them the other night at the game. And one of the things I brought up to them that you just segued me into is coaches' pay. And I've always had a problem here in CMS that a first year coach can make the same amount as a 25-year veteran, or an assistant coach who coaches 10 games, they don't make the playoffs, versus a coach that goes to the state championship like your guys. So they're working an extra 5 weeks with no pay. They've already been paid at the end of the regular season. And one of the solutions I've talked to people about is allowing so much of coach's pay comes from downtown. Okay, so when allow the AD and principal to sit down and decide where that money should go as far as coaching salaries, because it's no way a first year coach should make as much as a head coach or a 30-year coach or a 25-year coach. That's just not right, especially when you have coaches that consistently make, and their staffs consistently make the playoffs, and they're not getting compensated for it. So, do you have any ideas as to how CMS could better pay their coaches?
Well, I mean, at the present moment, we have different committees set up as far as our athletic directors in CMS. And I know this has been a big topic of conversation. I don't serve on that particular committee, but I know that they are working behind the scenes to talk about restructuring the pay, talk about the years of service or years of coaching, as well as like postseason. So these are things that they're trying to develop a structured plan that could be presented to the Board of Education for those changes. Like I said, I have no doubt that our current, county athletic director isn't on our side. She's been working diligently to, make a lot of changes and for the greater. I don't mean just, the bad stuff that a lot of people are just talking about. She's working behind the scenes with, the sponsors and the things that's been done already in CMS, i.e., flag football. So, I'm trusting in that they're already trying to restructure that because they see it. I mean, we can pull up a dozen articles right now of North Carolina coaches leaving, and they're making over six figures to do half the job they're doing in CMS, or they move to Georgia, or we go north and Virginia pays their coaches through the postseason, and the stipends are higher even in smaller counties. So, it's all about presenting it the right way, and that requires the research, that requires the planning, that requires putting that stuff together on paper. Because if you're going to take anything to CMS, you gotta have it laid out.
Who would it be presented to? Is it to the board or the superintendent?
Well, I mean, the superintendent serves as part of the Board of Education for CMS. So ultimately, it still has to go through their desk, but it's going to be presented to, same board directors that hold your school board meetings. And then ultimately, I think he can make the decision, yay or nay.
I might take up that cause. I know how to cause trouble. I might take up that cause.
You got Gary ranting again. That's all I know. We're on Chamber Talk. But let's switch it up a little bit. One of the things that we got to address on here is the Chamber swag. I think everybody talked from the transfer, the switch to from the brand era kind of to the new Ferb Wiggins Lash era here. And I think one of the biggest things we've seen is that change in style, the social media. You guys have a dedicated videographer. I mean, even you guys corrupted Coach Wiggins. I see him, getting in his Omega Man, steps last night after the win. I mean, I've been on staff with this guy, never seen it. So again, that's style. What makes it so infectious, and what kind of is that direction, that thought process for you guys around creating that?
Man, I'm gonna tell you this, and I say this all the time. Actually, I text our videographer this morning, and I tell him that people forget that football is a game. It's meant to be fun at the end of the day. As Gary alluded to, whether we go to 4 straight championships or we win 0 games, as coaches, we're all going to make the same amount of money. So that should have no bearing on the fun in the game. In turn, we're just allowing our kids to be themselves, man. Like, if you're not allowing them to have fun, what are we really coaching for? And that's what we've embraced with our school. Yes, we sit down and we talk about some things that's acceptable or unacceptable. Are we still representing Chambers as far as a brand, in terms of the school? Being sportsmanlike, the discipline things. These are conversations we still have surrounding those things. But what makes it infectious is that at the end of the day, who doesn't want to have fun? Like, if you're doing what you love, and then that's from a coaching standpoint or from a child standpoint in terms of playing the game, who doesn't want to have fun? And we're allowing our kids to embrace that opportunity to have fun, to be themselves, to cut loose, but do it from a respectable standpoint. Coach Lash should be the petty one. You guys enjoy the game. Miami had the same swag. When I think about the U and the brand that they created, it was a nasty, violent brand on the football field. It was swag, and they were winning. But people wanted them to lose too. Every single night that they suited up. So we've just embraced that. But it's not going to stop us from allowing our kids to have fun, because it's not about the championships or the rings. it's about the experience. They're only going to get 4 years of high school one time. So when they leave our school, I want them to have the memories that they can look 10, 20 years from now and talk to their kid about. They can still pull those social media videos and, look what we were doing. We talk about that as coaches all the time. We get in there playing scout team, we're running the triple option, or, we're trying to be that scout team. Look, we're reliving that stuff that we wish we could go pull up and show them. So, it's just creating a unique opportunity that's going to live with them forever, man.
No, I agree completely. One of my favorite quotes is from Pusha T. How can I not enjoy life? I'm reliving my childhood. I feel like that's kind of the quote I always live by with coaching and bringing that energy to the sport. But one question, kind of following up from that: do you guys feel that you're unfairly portrayed? I mean, I know the style and the swag. It comes with a cost. I mean, comparing. I'm glad you compared it to the U. I think watching your state championship victory against Rolesville reminded me of some of those Miami, U teams. Tons of talent. You guys absolutely destroyed and dominated Rolesville, but it was a penalty fest. I mean, you really watching that game, and it just seemed the game was bogged down. We knew the inevitable was going to occur, but it just seemed like it was a lot of attention paid to your swag. And again, within the confines of the field of play, flags were being thrown as a result of that. So do you feel that it's unfair, and kind of how does that style play with the refs in your opinion?
I mean, I think when you kind of take on that, I don't want to say bad boy because I don't really look at us as like the bad boys of football. But, we are kind of looked at as like that villain. But I think a lot of that comes from, just our following on social media and teams and coaches, not buying into social media for their programs. But in turn, from a ref standpoint, a penalty standpoint, honestly, a lot of calls are warranted, and those that are not, we tag them and we send them in, so that they can get better. I do understand as a coach that we are short on refs, and you got a lot of new refs coming into the positions, so there's gonna be questionable calls. I mean, that's every night, but we can't use that as an excuse to not play our brand of football. For every missed call, I can pull up a call that we shouldn't have, why are we having to coach that, or why are we having to correct this? This is day one mistakes. So I think it's going to be, two sides to that coin. But I try never try to throw the refs under the bus because, I know how hard of a job they have. It's just always my hope that there's not a bias there and that, they see the bigger picture in terms of our kids just enjoying the game and having fun. In my role now, I'll take on that responsibility in terms of addressing, your missed calls or maybe, your judgment of the team and stuff. So, to some people, if they have a biased bone in their body, that's probably going to show up, but that's not our responsibility. And talking to someone last night, one thing they said, our game went on for almost 3.5 hours last night. So, a lot of calls in that game. But, one thing that he said to me that stuck out is these kids, some of them have been to 2 and 3 state championships. Some of them have been down in 3 or 4 games that, everybody counted us out. So we've already been through more adversity over the last few years than we're ever going to really see as it pertains to referees. So we can't use those as excuses, but our kids mentally are already battle tested, so they expect, some of the calls. We play violent, we play fast, we play physical, as our coach AT would say, to the point of attack. So you're going to get some of that, backlash. And I'm okay with that. As long as we're playing our brand of football, as long as we're representing Chambers as a school in a positive light and respecting, where our principal is trying to take our school, we can deal with the other stuff, behind closed doors.
Well, Coach, you understand how you are perceived, and that's half the battle in dealing with it. But my question is, as I follow Twitter and other social media, I see a lot of coaches that are going back and forth at each other. And I'm just referring to CMS coaches about what their kids are going to do or what they're going to do and that type of thing. And now you have coaches kind of writing checks that their kids have to cash. And we had an incident in, I think it was Texas about a week ago, where the coaches got in a beef and over some officials calls, but the opposing coaches got into it, and one of the coaches wound up dead. Do you ever worry that this mentality of adults carrying the swag for the kids is getting a little bit out of control? I mean, I've seen it a couple of times in CMS where coaches got to be separated before the game because they've been talking junk all week, on social media as well.
So I'm gonna answer that in two parts, Gary, because I wanna make sure I give my full perspective. First off, condolences to that coach. That situation was a tragedy, and I think about my time just as being a youth league coach, and that really could have just been any of us. So for it to get to that point, does bring cause to concern that we can't ignore. That's first and foremost. Um, I talk about now, or even as a coach, sometimes about the banter, on social media, as far as coaches going back and forth. And I'm okay with a little chirp by coaches. I never encourage coaches to go back and forth with kids. That's an absolute no-no for us. But I'm okay with a little bit of coaches banter because at the end of the day, this is a violent game that we play. You're gonna have rivals, you're gonna have intense games. As long as it's done, you know, to where it doesn't get out of hand, I can live with it a little bit. I think when it becomes to the point that disrespect is involved, we're acting out of character. We're not representing our school brand to where we would be okay. Like if our principal or our boss seen that, then I think that's where you kind of draw the line. Um, you know, myself, I'm even guilty of that. So I'm not gonna act like I'm not. When it comes to our Chambers brand, the kids know that I'm gonna ride for them as it pertains to our football brand and what we built. So there's gonna be banter. There's gonna, in an intense rivalry, like maybe say us and a Mallard Creek, you have to expect that there's gonna be some talk. There's gonna be some chirp between the coaches and the kids, and I think that's okay. You've seen that football for as long as it's been around. I think you just have to draw the line as admin and coaches to where we don't have to worry about scenarios that took place like in Texas. So, do it within the confines of the game, do it from a respectable standpoint, and then just draw the line to where, you know, this can get out of hand.
Okay.
Fine, Sarah. Coach Lash, we appreciate you being here, on with us. One question I want to ask that normally the guru is the one that asks this one, but there always is going to come a time, even where you put your whistle down, even if you may pick it up like Gary, and that you're going to put it back down eventually. There's a time where you'll ultimately retire. We know, and again, you really illustrated through this interview how multifaceted you are. What would you like your legacy to be, and just how do you want to be remembered when your time is done?
Man, that's simple for me. I always want to be remembered by the amount of kids we got into school for free. That's where I feel like God has really blessed me in terms of just the recruiting aspect and getting our young boys to college. Um, when I think back to my high school career, my head coach Tony McKee, one thing he cared about was how many kids am I sending to college. That was kind of like his staple. We wasn't going to win a lot of championships there. We competed. We were going to make the playoffs, so it wasn't all about the wins and losses. And for me, it's the same thing, man. Every year, I'm trying to count how many kids are we sending to school. I don't care what level it's at. I don't care what sport it is. How many kids am I sending to school for free? And when I look back, that's what I want to be able to say, hey, I had 200, 300 kids, sent to college. Not all, at the hand of, Coach Lash, because, it takes a whole village. But as far as my legacy, I want them to say, hey, this man spent tireless hours, making sure that my son could get to school for free.
Well,
perfect.
Coach, I'm gonna tell you that is very rewarding. As somebody who's done it probably twice as long as you have, the best feeling in the world is when they come back and tell you that they appreciate all you did for them, and they will. Trust me, they will come back and they'll let you know the impact you had on their lives.
For sure. I agree.
Definitely. Well, Coach, appreciate having you on again. This was another great Talking Preps OT interview. You've got the retired coach. I feel like we keep trying to get him out of retirement, but thank you to Gary Richmond again joining us here for this special edition of Talking Preps OT. But again, thank you everybody, and look for another great interview next week.